So this is a pretty timely time of the year to be talking about wildfire preparedness. And we're very, very, very lucky to have Daniel Berlant with us today. He is the state fire marshal. So all the fires that you've read about in the last few years up and down the coast and inland are his responsibility. He's not the fires. No, putting them out. I'm sorry.
Thank you for clarifying.
Fridays do get long, even when there aren't any.
Now that we know you're paying
fires to put out.
attention.
So Chief Berlant was appointed by Gavin Newsom in 2023, and he's providing strategic guidance and leadership over, this is a lot, communications, legislation, and community wildfire preparedness and mitigation. That's really a mouthful. That's a lot. He's been with CAL FIRE more than 2 decades. So of course he knows all of that, and piece of cake, right? But he started serving as a volunteer, and that's always a good way to start. Like all of us, who knows what we're going to do next, being volunteers today. Daniel served as the public face of CAL FIRE in both the state and national media, so I'm sure you've seen his face, and you've seen things that he's said in print, and he works very, very carefully with local, state, and federal agencies. And he holds a bachelor's degree in poli-sci from UC Davis. So you can tell us more about you and everything else that you do, Daniel. Welcome to Renaissance.
Thank you all. I'm all good. Yeah, having gone to a school on the other side of the causeway, I was a little lost finding the building here today. But on top of, thank you for that introduction, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you. The State Fire Marshal, I have a lot of responsibilities related to fire prevention. Wildfire is just one of them. In fact, we set the building and fire code for the entire state. So the building you are in went through the code that we set, went through a plan review. My team comes out and inspects it. So at least this building here in this campus, while it is not UC Davis, I can attest that it meets all the safety standards. But State Fire Marshal's Office is responsible for fire and life safety. We also set firefighting training standards for all fire departments. I regulate about 5,000 miles of liquid petroleum pipelines. I have an entire division that licenses about 17,000 people, companies, and products related to fire protection. So the sprinkler system that is not in this building. This is an older building. Today's code, a new building, sprinkler systems that are installed, that individual has a license from our office. The fire extinguisher that there should be right in this room back here, the individual who serviced that fire extinguisher has a license from our office. So we license lots of different products. Every time you go to the gas station, for example, that gas nozzle you use, it's a vapor recovery system for air quality, but actually it has an inherent fire risk. And so we certify that gas nozzle. So State Fire Marshal's fingertips are on a lot of different things related to fire. But obviously, in the past decade, a huge growing problem fire-related has been wildfires. And so while I appreciate the introductions, I've spent the last 2 decades at CAL FIRE. Wildfire preparedness was moved to the State Fire Marshal's Office within CAL FIRE in 2001 to really increase the department's focus on prevention. So we are a forestry department, we are a fire department, we are a prevention department. And a little bit about CAL FIRE, if you don't know, we are the largest fire department in the state. We are responsible for about 1/3 of California for wildfire. So all those fires that I did not start, I can attest in front of a judge and jury that I have never intentionally or negligently started a fire. But if a fire occurs by somebody else or through negligence or accidental within our jurisdiction, mostly rural parts of California, we have about a third of the state, it is CAL FIRE's responsibility. But wildfires are a growing problem. That's what I'm going to talk about today. And so the legislature decided to ensure that while CAL FIRE is very good, and we are very proud of our fire operations, the legislature moved wildfire prevention, I should say, to my position to make sure that it has focus every single day, not just in the winter months. You can imagine this time of year, we're very busy with fires. But my team, it doesn't really matter how busy fires are, because making sure that we're preparing communities is really a year-round effort. And so I have a team of people up and down the state that all year long work on fire prevention, including wildfire preparedness. If we can go to the slides here. So there's a lot of topics we could talk about today, but obviously wildfire is a real major issue. I'm going to talk a little bit about the complexities of wildfires, talk about how we got to the place we are in with those, but then also talk about the strategies that we have in place and really narrow down into the strategies related to communities and community preparedness. I'll give it 1 second here.
Let me fix that. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to click on that.
There we go. So let's talk a little bit about the wildfire problem in California. Again, I don't need to convince you that there's a problem. You see it every summer in the news, even in the non-summer. Think of January. We don't have to go far to see the destruction that wildfires have caused here in California. But even when we're not directly impacted, we all have impacts. Smoke, for example. We have been very fortunate, I would argue, this year to not have smoke impacts from fires in other parts of California.
One quick delay. We're going to stop something for a second to make sure we're optimized for sound.
Okay, perfect. Well, while there we go. The problem, though, is complex, and there was a lot of factors into the problem that we have of wildfires. There we go. So the first one, and this is, just to be blunt, the most political one of it, and that is a changing climate. As I go through some of these things, there's not necessarily agreement. There's political components to all of these, and I'll talk a little bit about those because I think it warrants both a little bit of data to back it up, but then also to show that what you hear in the news sometimes has a piece that is reality in the political debate that is wildfires. But a changing climate. A paper that came out earlier this year from the University of California found that our fire seasons were starting 10 weeks earlier than they did just a decade ago. A study out of the University of California in Merced a number of years ago, about a decade ago now, found that our fire seasons were on average 75 days longer than they were in the 1970s. And so what we are experiencing is that there's really not a fire season anymore. It really is a fire year. 12 months out of the year, we are responding to wildfires. You look at LA, and maybe we could argue that the LA fires on January 7th of this year were an anomaly to have such destruction in the winter months. But it really sticks with the trend that we've been seeing, where we're seeing more fires across the year. But back to the weather. So it's not just the fire seasons are getting longer, it's really those weather conditions. We experienced some of our hottest temperatures in our state's history in the last couple of years, with Death Valley hitting well over 130 degrees. The summer months, we just had one of these, what is now becoming a much more typical storm system come through in the summertime. And what does it bring? Lightning. And what does it not bring? Rain. This last month, in the month of August, we had over 120,000 lightning strikes from storm systems. They sparked several hundred fires. Most of them you never heard about. Only a very few of them actually were able to become large. A lot of that because of our rapid response. But we've had years here in California where lightning storms in the summer months have caused significant fire activity for us. And so, again, this is part of that changing weather dynamic. More frequent extreme weather events. The governor likes to say the hots are getting hotter and the wets are getting wetter. And that's the reality, because look at just 2 years ago in January, we were actually not fighting fire. We were doing storm response. We had major snow damage and flooding, especially in the Central Valley. But then you flip, again, not many months later, and here we are in extreme heat with then wildfires. And so the short of it is, part of this problem is the extreme weather conditions that are changing here in California. Our forests are overgrown. So I like to go back, just because I like to bring up politics and stir it up a little bit. The president, in his first term, came to California. He said, you need to rake your forest, right? And I was like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, he's right. He's right in the sense that our forests in California are overgrown and unhealthy. Now, it's really important to note that over 50% of California is actually owned by the federal government. Most of our forest land is actually federally owned. The second, most of that is private. The state owns very little forested land. Most of our forested land is owned by the federal government. And so our forests are overgrown. They are unhealthy. They are susceptible to drought conditions, to pests like bark beetle. Bark beetles, if you didn't hear, this was especially an issue in 2015 era especially. We had over 100 million trees die because of pests and bark beetle. If you go up to Yosemite area or any of the Central Valley, Central Sierras, I should say, just significant die-off of the forest, the pine trees dying off because of these pests. Well, dead trees creates fuel that then can fan wildfires. And that happened. We had a fire called the Creek Fire that did a significant amount of destruction in Shaver Lake. So our forests are overgrown, they're unhealthy. If you think of a park-like setting where trees are spaced, where you can see through them, that's the easiest way to imagine a healthy forest. But the forests that we have, most of them in California, are so thick. And I think many of us in California, we love our trees, right? Especially those who have moved out of the Bay Area or Southern California move up here because of the trees. And so we think more trees must be good, kind of like more money is always good. Well, the reality is more trees is not good. They are competing with each other. They are fighting for sunlight and water, and so they become stressed when those drought conditions come, again, making them then susceptible for wildfire. So overgrown forests are a major part of our problem. The next piece here, human ignitions. 95% of all the wildfires we respond to are caused by the activity of people. Now, arson is a piece of that, maybe about 10-15%. Most of the wildfires that we respond to and we have here in California are caused by people, the activity of people, but it's accidental. It's things like in more rural areas, people using lawnmowers to cut down dry weeds. Sparks a fire every single day. Especially in rural areas, people pulling their leaves together to try to get rid of them, and they burn them. And that fire is unattended or too big. It gets out of control. And so people have a huge role in this. When I say people, I don't just mean you and me like as individuals. We also have companies, utilities, as an example, that also have been a major contributor of that. If you go back even in our state's history, 50, 60 years ago, an industry that you never hear anymore about wildfires was a major contributor to fire ignitions, and that was our railroads. And then a lot of work went in to ensuring that our trains, that our railway pathways were clear of vegetation, and now you hear almost none of them. So I tell you that to say we can talk long about the utilities' blame in all this, but there's so much focus with the utilities that it will likely move onto the next generation of industry being part of this. But again, human ignitions is a major causes. And then the population growth, right? We are such a huge state, 39 million people within our state. Where do you put all those people? People have to find housing. Where is it cheap to build housing in open areas? And so we push further and further into unoccupied areas and putting people in these areas that have a higher fire hazard risk. And you put people who are recreating or visiting forested areas or wildland areas, and so those ignitions increase. And so more people adds to the challenge. So all this to say, it's all of these things. It's not one of them. It's not just we have to rake our forest. It's not just we need more firefighters. It's not just climate change or whatever you want to call it. It's all of these things compounding, creating like a confluence of issues all at the same time here. This is a quick chart I just want to show. It demonstrates the top 20 largest wildfires in our state's history. And why I show this to you is you can see that only a small sliver occurred in pre-2000. All the large fires have occurred since 2000 that are on this list, and even just more recently, you can see 2021, so the last 5 years, over half of the largest fires. And so if you look back at some statistics related to fires, the number of wildfires in California is not necessarily increasing. It's the severity of the wildfires. They're getting larger. They're burning in areas that maybe traditionally they wouldn't, and in those areas where now people are living and building, and so the impact from those wildfires goes up. And so the impact of wildfires, the severity of wildfires, that's the real issue. It's not necessarily the number of fires. But I show this just to kind of go back to say that in a state that for pre-European civilization has had wildfires as its natural part of our ecosystem, we're seeing more destructive and largest ever before. Okay, so that's the bad. I started with the bad. Let's talk about the good. It's not all doom and gloom. We have a strategy, and it's a strategy that we've worked on at all levels of government. So we have a task force made up of cities and counties, the state, different departments, the federal government, the U.S. Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management, our tribal partners, and many of our other nonprofit groups have come together over the last 5+ years and created an action plan. 99 key actions, measurables, for addressing all of these things of wildfire risk, community preparedness. And that strategy is really focused in 3 core areas. First, response. Making sure that we have adequate firefighters, that we have equipment. Here in California, we are very blessed and very proud of the fact that we have, in the last 5 years, seen our staffing doubled in size. We will this year be upwards of 13,000 firefighters. In the next 2 years, that will grow to 15,000 firefighters. We've seen our equipment expanded. We've replaced all of our Huey helicopters that were Vietnam era with new Black Hawk version, civilian version as well. Technology has increased. We have a camera system that in our jurisdiction provides a view shed of almost 90% of our jurisdiction has a camera on it. But many of those cameras are actually integrated with AI technology. And so we use AI to actually detect fires. This will continue to grow. It's in its infancy, but 10% of all the wildfires we respond to are actually identified by using AI technology on the cameras. And then by having a live view of the camera immediately, or of the fire immediately, allows our dispatchers to determine the proper amount of equipment. And it is our goal, and we succeed at this, at containing 95% of all of our wildfires to 10 acres or less. So most of the fires you never hear about. Every single week there are hundreds of fires that never make the news because we send everything. We send, we really, I want to stress, we are good stewards of taxpayer dollars, but we very much believe in sending every piece of equipment that we have available at it. So fire engines, helicopters, air tankers, bulldozers, fire hand crews, so that they hit the road early. And if they're not needed, well, then they can turn around and go back to the station. But we have a very aggressive response. But we're not going to respond our way out of this crisis. This is where we get into the next 2 components of our strategy. And I'll focus a little bit more on this one, but community hardening, and this is the part that my team does in the department, helping make sure that we're building new neighborhoods and new communities to a higher standard so they can resist the embers and the flames of wildfires and the impact of wildfires. hardening homes, and I'll talk more about what that means, defensible space around homes. But community hardening is really important because while these fires are occurring, and maybe they occur in the forest, what we have found, and I'll show some video of this, embers can travel a mile plus and rain down on the community. So you may not even live in a forested land. Think about Pacific Palisades. Some of the folks right on the water's edge probably really never envisioned that they would be in a wildfire. They're on the beach. They're literally at the water. But they always were at a level of hazard to wildfires because of embers from open space. And we need open space, and I'll talk about why fuel breaks and fuel reduction in our forests and our open space are really important. But lastly, forest health. Again, I go back to the rate the forest comment. Making sure that we're returning our forests back to their natural state at a landscape level, not just a little piece here, returning the entire forest. And that's very difficult. How did, and this is just a question, and I realize that they're not going to hear you on Zoom, and I'll repeat it, but anybody have a thought about how 100 years ago, 200 years ago, Mother Nature naturally ensured that the forests were healthy? Fire. Fire, natural fire. Fire is part of our ecosystem. We have many plants and trees that not only are adapted, but require fire to repopulate. We suppress fire, which we've had to do. As people have moved in every corner of the state, we can't let wildfires burn naturally. In our jurisdiction that CAL FIRE protects, 99% of it is privately owned. It's your home. It's a company's home. We have a lot of companies that own a lot of land, timber companies, for example, but it's privately owned. So we don't have the ability to say, we're going to let this fire burn. Now, naturally, that's what should occur, except for, I gave you the stat earlier, how many fires are natural? Only 5% of fires. But if we let those 5% of fires burn on private property, it's impacting your home, it's impacting your land. It doesn't work. So what we've really focused on doing is using fuels management, whether that be timber harvesting, whether that be fuels reduction, removing the smaller, the weaker trees so that those larger trees can become healthier, actually absorb more carbon. But forest health is a really important part of our overall strategy. So this year's fire year kicked off with an insane start, right? January 7th, we had hurricane level winds. Nearly 100-mile-an-hour winds registered in the mountaintops just above Altadena. Winds sustained in the 70s in Pacific Palisades on January 7th. And so fire erupted and very quickly burned into Pacific Palisades. Same thing with Altadena. Later in the afternoon, late in the evening, I should say, a fire started in the hillsides above Altadena, outside Pasadena area, the 210 corridor, and blew right into the communities. In fact, there was a fire station literally about a mile from where that fire started. They come out of the station, somebody calls. There's a fire right behind the station. They come out, they have winds pushing not only the fire, but hurricane level winds making it difficult for them to stand. Before they can actually even respond, the fire is already sending embers not only to the park preserve that they are stationed at, but into the community of Altadena. And as the evening would go on, really within about a 12-hour period, that entire community was destroyed. 12 hours. Now, those LA fires are unique. It wasn't just a wildfire that destroyed them. It's something that is becoming more frequent, but newer phenomena called urban conflagration. So the wildfire starts. The embers rain down, please no disrespect. Rains on your house. Catches her house on fire. Her house, though, is interconnected with flammable pathways to her neighbor, a wooden fence, shrubs, privacy shrubs that are right up against her home so that she doesn't have to see it. The fire finds those flammable pathways and burns from one home to the next, and it becomes a domino. All while firefighters are doing one primary thing in those first hours: saving people, helping people to evacuate. Now in Altadena, they immediately worked to evacuate, to put out notices. Many people didn't leave. Why would we leave? We live in the heart of the city. We're a mile away from the forest. It's never going to get to us. They went to bed. Many of them went to sleep that night after receiving an evacuation notice. And so her house is on fire. It's spreading to the next, spreading to the next. The fire engines respond. They can come here and they can start to put out this fire, but they have to save these individuals who did not evacuate. That becomes the challenge. And all while this is happening, her home is not only spread to the next home, her home is producing embers that, carried by the wind, are now being rained down on the block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks down. And so you can see it quickly overwhelms the system. Lots of drama and politics about water, right? A lot of criticism that was made that water was not available. Municipal water from fire hydrants is really designed with water pressure and the amount of water to fight a structure fire. 1, maybe 2 at the same time. Not an entire block, let alone an entire community. And so, of course, there's not going to be enough water to fight a conflagration like that. Now, we are having to figure out what do we need to do tactically different for urban conflagration versus wildfire. All this is really focused on wildfire I'm going to talk about, but urban conflagration is what we experienced in January. It's what Lahaina experienced in Hawaii last year. It's what Colorado, fire outside Denver called the Marshall Fire. It's what Santa Rosa experienced in 2017. Again, not the wildfire burning down homes, but the embers destroying homes. Quickly, this is just a point of pride. These are our beautiful new helicopters. We have 16 of these. These are, again, equivalent to a Black Hawk. They are larger, they are faster, and they are safer than our old ones. If you've ever seen our old ones, they're Hueys. Again, Vietnam era, we love them. They were refurbished. We took care of them and still keep them maintained to this day. But these are larger. They have 2 engines. So if something goes wrong, and it happens, they can safely land. And we fly these at night, which we could not do with the other ones because, again, if something goes wrong, they still have 1 more engine. They can safely make it to the ground. Night flying. By the way, this picture is at nighttime. This is the middle of the night. This is Mandeville Canyon, which is just outside Pacific Palisades. But you can see how bright the fire has made it. So I love this shot, but people never believe me. But this is the middle of the night. Oh, there's our old plane, our old helicopters. And we still have them. We use them as reserves. Here's our new C-130 air tankers. Again, we've taken aircraft from the military that were no longer needed. You can see these oftentimes the Coast Guard flies this equivalent. They've been completely retrofitted. So it is able to hold about 4,000 gallons of fire retardant. Our standard air tanker right up there, which we love. We have 23 of those all over the state. That smaller one can hold about 1,200 gallons. The C-130, again, about 3,000 to 4,000. It varies based on elevation and a lot of other factors of the day. But we are retrofitting these as we speak. We have 2 of them in service. We'll have 7 of them. And when you add them all up, the helicopters and our air tankers, we have well over 60 aircraft that we own. These are state of California owned. We have more aircraft in California that we own than any other state or nation. In fact, we are the largest civil air force. I say it again as pride. It is a bragging point for us, but it goes to the preparedness that California has, and we are lucky to have versus many of our western states and the nation. I talked about the technology, but this is one of our situational rooms, and you can see where they're monitoring fires, and again, using AI to provide that, and then real time, folks can make operational decisions about sending wildfires. All these cameras, if you've never gone on, you can access. So on our website, fire.ca.gov, and there are some apps privately maintained where the locations of our aircraft, the cameras, live view is all available to the public. And so we've worked very hard to make that available and accessible to all of you. AlertCalifornia.com. If you go to that website, that is the organization that maintains these for us, Alert California. So community preparedness, again, that is what my team in the wildfire space is really focused on. Looks at really 3 core components to how do we prevent homes from being destroyed. Sad fact, 70,000 homes and buildings have been destroyed in less than a decade. 70,000 Californians have lost their home from wildfires specifically. Thank you. Because we do have other fires. Right, we do have house fires and chimney fires. This is just wildfires. 70,000 alone. And so the core of it starts with home hardening, building the home itself or the building so that it can withstand embers and resist the flames of wildfires. We've had a building code in effect since 2008 for homes built in wildfire-prone areas that have to be built with materials and processes that make them less susceptible to wildfires. In fact, statistically, if you have, well, I'll come back to that in a second. Remind me of that. I want to get to defensible space in a moment here. But, sad fact, 90% of homes in wildfire-prone areas were built before this code. And so while we're super proud of this code, right, it's the best in the nation, it's one of the only in the nation, 90% of the homes in wildfire-prone areas were built before 2008. And so this is where this more recent push has come in to retrofit, to do home improvements to harden the home. And that could be simple things like adding smaller screen mesh on the vents in your home. Every house for airflow and heat has vents that go into the attic. Embers get into those vents, they get into the attic, they get into the insulation, and they burn the home down from the inside. And so by simply putting screen meshing, which can be very low cost, significantly increases the home's chance of surviving a wildfire. There's a lot of other things. Most people automatically go to, well, we need a tile roof. Well, statistically speaking, 99% of homes in wildfire-prone areas already have a fire-rated roof, because roofs don't last forever. They really only last 20-ish years or so. And so in reality, most homes now have replaced their roof. We have very little wood shake roofs or what we call Class A roofs, again, that fire rating standard. But those are home hardening elements. I'll show a little bit more here in a minute. But away from the home, we look at defensible space, removing dead or dying vegetation, flammable vegetation. We don't want bare dirt. I'm going to show some pictures. We don't want bare dirt around a home, but we need people to space their trees out. Remember the analogy I gave back to the Pacific Palisades fire, that the fire goes from the brush or the bushes or the plants from her house to the next? That's a problem. I'm going to show a video here of some embers that kind of highlight why this defensible space is so needed. But around communities themselves, we really look to have green belts. And those can be golf courses. As new communities are built, we really advise them in their planning efforts to put parks, green space, open space, golf courses on the outer edge so that there's a break between the open space of the forest or open space itself of other brush, green belts, but then doing fuel reduction on that space, making sure that it is managed right around those communities. Here's another kind of depiction of it a little bit differently. So here you can see first, and I realize not everybody can see my pointer here, but I'll start here in the community itself. So we start with land use planning standards, advising new neighborhoods. You notice that they have the roadways on the outer edge. That creates a fuel break that they don't have to maintain. A roadway on the outer edge to give a bit of a break between the open space and the neighborhood. You can see they have a golf course right here. So a green belt of some type. And when I say green belt, again, natural but maintained. Park-like setting. I love walking around college campuses like this because they have lots of trees. It's green, but it's all maintained. The trees are limbed up. The trees are spaced out. You can see through it. That's what we want in and around communities. Defensible space. You can see this home, in this depiction has plants in and around it, but it has clearance from the forest itself. The forest itself up here has been reduced, meaning they've kind of spaced out the trees. In this element as well, there's utility hardening to make sure that those utility lines, if pushed by the winds, again, our utility companies are under pressure for their systems. Not only are they outdated, but when they're under hurricane winds in a state doesn't have hurricanes, when you have vegetation right next to them, they're gonna catch fire. It's going to happen. Now, again, we won't go into too much detail about the need for the utilities to do their responsibilities, but in a prepared community, utility hardening is a major component. So I gave you a quick look at home hardening. Here's a couple pictures of defensible space. You can still see trees and plants, but they're spaced. Again, it's open. And in particular, for those who can see, there are no plants right up against the home. And that's really become a new concept, and again, I'm going to show you the science behind why we are advising that. In this case, they have 5 feet gravel. They have 5 feet of cement padding in the back. They still have lots of plants, but they've moved it. So this first 5 feet, what we have found is that those embers rain down on the home. And based on a lot of science that I'm not smart enough to really explain, but I'll show you a video of it, those embers collect right within that first 5 feet. It has a lot to do with wind vortexes. The wind hits the home, the embers fall to the ground, the wind then pushes them out, but it can only push another 5 feet because it again is having wind push on it, and it kind of like water does, it eddies. It goes in circles, all staying within 5 feet. But I want to show a few photos because when we talk about defensible space, people usually assume we mean bare dirt around your home. And that's not what we mean. You can see they have plants, they have color, but they've moved them. They're not planted right up against the home. Here's another example of what we would consider a fire-safe landscaping house itself. So let's talk about the research. We've done so much research in really, I'd argue, less than the decade here to try to understand why are homes being destroyed, what can we do? And so this is an image, this is from the Institute for Business and Home Safety. They're a research organization that we partner with, as does the insurance industry, but they have the only large laboratory wind tunnel. It's actually 4 stories. They can produce 130 mile-an-hour winds. They bring in full-scale house replicas. Well, I mean, they're not replicas. They're real houses. They build real houses, as you can even see in this picture and in the video. And then they produce embers. And then the wind pushes it. So they're simulating a fire. So here you can see this photo mid-fire. But what do you notice about the embers? Again, they are accumulating within a 5-foot area of the home. Not all of them, but a majority of them. And so this has led to new legislation to limit combustible items right up against the home itself, to ensure that these embers don't catch the plants. Even your rose bushes and other greenery can catch fire. Here's a quick video of some of the various testing that they've done in this laboratory. But why I show this to you is back to, we didn't just come up with, sit back in Sacramento in a high-rise across from the Capitol and say, how can we create regulations to, make it harder for people in California? People think that all the time, just so you know. All the time. We do experiments. We do research with academia to help inform us. So I'll go back to that house in a moment. Actually, let me see if I can just do it. This is, I think, a really important demonstration. This home, half of it was built to our California standards, half of it was not. Half of it, as you can see, while it doesn't have a lot of plants right up against it, this is rock, and this is a material that is ember resistant. This side had bark and mulch and had plants right up against it. It had wood siding, and again, it had all the other components. The eaves were not screened. And again, I'm already midway into this experiment. The spoiler alert, the home that wasn't built resiliently catches fire. The other home with the same amount of embers, where's my video? With the same amount of embers, it doesn't get destroyed. And so this is what tells us that our code with defensible space, and specifically this first 5 feet, is so critical. I'll let this play out and then go on. But right now the state is working on developing regulations that would prohibit combustible items. And that's not just plants and bark. And I used roses. You may think, why would roses burn? Well, everything practically burns. Every plant burns. And when you're under these wildfire conditions, especially when it's significant wind, all of the moisture inside those plants, it gets sucked out. And so your plants may still be green, but the moisture content, the amount of water inside that plant is critically low, making it easier to burn. Again, here's the end of that study. They had to put the fire out eventually, but you can see it would have completely destroyed that one side of the house. This is from a fire last year, and again, you can see the embers are just raining down, and this one firefighter is having to remove the bushes right up against the home. And so remember back to what I was telling you, the challenges firefighters have. They can't just fight the fire. In this case, he is literally cutting down and likely the tree that's right there and all the bushes next to this apartment complex to prevent it from then spreading to the home itself. But these aren't just one or two embers. These are thousands and thousands of embers, and it only takes one to bring down the home. So as I wrap up here, the last kind of piece of our strategy is community level mitigation. If she does everything right, this time you've done everything right. She's hardened her home, she's got good defensible space, but her next door neighbor here has done nothing, her home is still at risk. Now again, there's density components and complexities to that, but this is where we really looked at, we need the entire neighborhood to a certain percentage to get hardened itself. And this is where groups like Firewise, any of you in a Firewise neighborhood? No, not one. Okay. In more rural areas that are affected by wildfires, we've had a lot more neighborhoods become designated as Firewise, meaning that they, as a HOA or as a group of neighbors, they come together and say, we're going to do something. We're going to come up with a plan. We're going to work to reduce our wildfire risk. Again, not just one individual, but everybody.
I just wanted to give you water because...
Oh, I'm good. Okay. Did I need to put out the fire? Community level mitigation, though, is really what we're trying to strive to get. But you can imagine it's very difficult. Not everybody wants to participate. Not everybody wants to follow what the government has to say. Not everybody wants to work with their neighbors. And so this is a challenge of community level mitigation. But community planning, make sure we're building our communities are all really important pieces. So I'll wrap up here. Here's some resources to all these things that I've talked about. Again, I went probably fast and high level, but it's complex. That's really, I think, the message of the day, but we are working towards it. And again, it's not just CAL FIRE working towards it. Our federal partners at the U.S. Forest Service here in California are very much aligned with us. While D.C. is making a lot of changes to federal policy, the federal firefighters that we work here in California, we are aligned in our efforts. We are aligned with our local partners at cities and counties. We are aligned and even more working to expand our partnerships with tribal entities to bring back cultural burning and to learn lessons learned. But also, as tribes own land, they are an important government for us to work with as well. And so all this to say, at the local, state, federal, and tribal level, we are working towards buying down the risk. The unfortunate part, though, is that our climate will continue to change likely faster than we're able to implement these mitigations. And so the call to action is we've got to do something now. Luckily, you all, or at least a majority of you, voted for the climate bond, which continued to provide funding to be able to ensure that wildfire resiliency projects and efforts continued at least for the next several years. And so funding in California has continued to be at a high amount. So thank you very much. Happy to take some questions. Right here, where's, oh, I'll let the man with the mic decide who gets to talk.
Hi, you mentioned you have one of your responsibilities is a pipeline of some sort. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, liquid materials like gasoline that's transported from one place to the next is actually regulated by the state fire marshal. So as oil is moved from point A to point B, I have the fantastic opportunity to get to regulate that. And my point of pride here, back to I love to brag, is my team, since we had a major oil spill in Santa Barbara, not a pipeline, by the way, at the time that was under state authority, we have actually continued to receive a 100% score by the federal government in our efforts to make sure that pipelines that you don't have any idea are all underneath you everywhere, moving gasoline fuel every single day, don't leak. I'll just leave it here. I tell my team they have one simple job. It's really complex. There's engineers that are really smarter than me. I tell them, keep the oil in the pipe. That's all they got to do. But yes, we regulate that.
If you have a situation where you've got those 100-mile-an-hour winds that you were describing, Santa Ana or whatever, can you even use the helicopters and the tankers? Or
Yeah,
do you have to let it burn or what?
No, it's a great question. The short answer is no. aircraft cannot safely fly really when the winds go beyond 30 to 40 miles an hour. But not only is it not safe, because I will tell you our pilots will push the limit, but it becomes ineffective, right? They drop retardant, the wind just takes the water, the retardant. And so the short answer is no. In those early hours of the LA fires, we were not able to fly aircraft. We had them available. In fact, we pre-positioned them in areas that we knew would be less affected by the wind so that if windows of opportunity in LA opened up, they could quickly respond. But aircraft was not able to fly until later that night. Now, later that night, the winds died down. It was still there were still strong winds. We had new fires. We were flying those fires all night long. I showed you that picture. All night long we were flying them, and that's what actually contained a lot of the other fires, preventing more homes in LA, other communities from following the same fate as Pacific Palisades. But all that to say, no, we cannot fly them. They're not effective.
What about the animals? How do you take care of the animals in the forest when you're trying to burn part of it down?
Let me clarify. Do you mean during a wildfire or when we do prescribed fire? Yeah, okay, great question. So first off, in a wildfire, we don't do anything about the wildlife. Animals are adapted to be able to get out of harm's way. Most do. Do animals die? Yes. Honestly, I would argue that more domestic animals, cattle who are fenced in, die in wildfires. Our firefighters will often go and open up fences to just let horses and cows get out, and they do, and they're pretty good at being able to get out on their own. For prescribed fire, it's the same thing. When we go in to do a prescribed fire, I didn't really talk much about that. We've really increased our own pace and scale of, under the right conditions, putting fire under the ground. When people start coming out, the animals, they scurry away. And so I'm not aware of any, and maybe any is a hard term, wildlife dying in a prescribed fire. In fact, before we do prescribed fire, we do bird studies, and we do a lot of other things to make sure that we're not doing it during nesting season. There aren't any endangered animals. So I would say, to your question, fires, they kill lots of animals. There's no way around that. But naturally, animals tend to escape.
I've been working with the Amador Fire Safe Council, and I ran into a problem when I started clearing and masticating lands that my property was too small. And I found it very interesting that the state resources to assist would not qualify for somebody who owned 15 or 20 acres, but had to be more. And I find that an interesting problem since you've got, earlier here in your discussions, you're talking about the resilience for people with houses and with small parcels of land. And it cost me a lot of money. There were no resources for reimbursement because I think there was starting in 2020, when we started doing this in 2022, I think there was a 40-acre minimum to get any state assistance. And I found that quite interesting since the people with the least resources are the ones that are having the toughest time doing the clearing. And now every year I have a masticator come through, and I've got big trees, some of which still have to come down. I've got decks stacked of dead trees that were taken out. By the way, if anybody wants any firewood, and all on 15 acres, that a property that I've owned for over 40 years.
So first off, thanks for bringing that up because, I talk about these things in like 20 minutes and we don't get to talk about the complexities or the challenges. You're right. Some of this work is very expensive. Retrofitting your home, doing the land clearance, especially if you have a large amount of land, even though, as you noted in some of the programs, large landowners are very large. One of the things we struggle with is who do we provide financial assistance to? I believe we have new programs that go down to as small as 5 acres, providing a cost match program. We can connect afterwards, but I guess for the broader group, that's part of the challenge. And one of the things we have done, we've been piloting providing socially vulnerable Californians, because the question we get asked is, the government has a finite amount of money. Whose responsibility is it for us to take care of us as private individuals' land? Now, the point you made that I really want to, or at least I took away from your conversation, is we have a lot of people, even Malibu, people think, oh, they're so rich, they have these gigantic homes, but they inherited them. And so they may have a lot of land or they may have large homes, but they don't have a lot of cash. And so I don't have a really good answer to you because that's a big challenge for us, is really trying to figure out who do we provide public assistance to. And we've really tried to narrow down to vulnerable Californians. But I do think there's a cost share program for large and small landowners, but I think it's like 5 acres. But I'll validate that and at the end here.
Yes, my question is about manpower. You have people who work permanently for you. Do you draw in, for these big fires, do you draw in people from other, like prisoners or other places? How does that work?
Yeah, a great question. Thank you for that. So we are a large agency, but on any fire, it takes thousands of firefighters. And so we have agreements in place that are all automatic, very quick, that we can pull local fire departments to help us, federal agencies from other states. We have a program with the Department of Corrections. They provide us about 3,000 inmates. That has significantly decreased in the last decade for a lot of reasons that I don't have time to explain. But we've also increased our partnerships with the California Conservation Corps. In fact, the California Conservation Corps has been a great partnership because we now have Corps members that are trained as fire crews. But the best part is we steal them all the time after they're a couple years in and make them permanent firefighters. But in the summertime, we increase our staffing with seasonals. You didn't mean this, but I'm going to just use this as an opportunity. You said manpower. We have about 95% in the fire service men. It's a male-dominated industry. We have only 5% women. And tests have shown that women can perform in firefighting jobs no different than men. And so I only, not to point out to you that word, I only take it because it's something we're working through ourselves, is trying to actually, we can't fill all the jobs, and so we're trying to show different groups, not just women, but even individuals from inner cities, that this is a job for them. And I will tell you, back to the California Conservation Corps, the Corps does a really good job of it's very diverse, and so it's a great group for us. One point of pride, sorry, I love bragging. My team of firefighters, I have about 25% women. And so what's interesting is in fire prevention, it's a more 40-hour job. I have more women firefighters than we do out on the line for a whole host of reasons. But I'll just say we're working to do that. So if you have any friends, if yourself or grandkids or children, we're hiring. Okay.
Yes, from the Zoom audience, we have a question. How do I deal with an absentee property owner whose property is entirely vegetation, no structures?
So cities and counties regulate that differently through local ordinances. There's not a state requirement. In fact, state law is only to the property line. And so your neighbor becomes their responsibility. In the city I live in the city of Auburn, and we have a requirement that if the property line doesn't give you the defensible space you need, you can actually work with that property owner. If it is vacant particular, there's still a requirement to clear at least the outer edge of it. And in my city, if you don't clear it, the city will do it for you. You will get billed for it, and then when you don't pay, which is very common, it then gets added to the tax rolls. And so that's one way. Many people don't like that, by the way, but I just tell you that that's an option.
Okay, and Zoom viewer Kitty Williamson says, you said that 95% of wildfires are started by people. I've read this is true in Southern California. I'm told most wildfires in Northern California are started by lightning. Would you care to comment?
Yeah, I would still characterize it that in our jurisdiction, 95% are across the state. Of course, lightning does occur in forested areas at a higher amount. And so federal land is probably different. We have more forests in Northern California, so I think you're probably on the right track. But in our jurisdiction, in total, statewide, and we do have just as many fires in Northern California as we do in Southern California, that 95% stays true. So, thank you very much.